I grew up, I guess, first playing, I always loved music. And so I was always listening to the music in my parents' basement. And, you know, before there were headphones, they were they had one like earphone. And I didn't like that. So.
Welcome to the Career Education Learning Center podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Rivers. I am elated and excited to have two-time Grammy-nominated composer, bass player David Dyson today. How you doing today, David?
I can't complain. Thank you for that grand introduction.
Oh man, I could have had a lot more on that when I looked at your profile on LinkedIn, my brother. It was a lot there. We're going to go through a lot of that already. So don't worry about that. We're going to go through this massive profile that you have here, and hopefully the students and our viewers and listeners will learn a lot about you and a lot about music.
All right. That sounds good to me.
Well, David, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your journey to your current career path.
I grew up, I guess, first playing, I always loved music. And so I was always listening to the music in my parents' basement. And, you know, before there were headphones, they were they had one like earphone. And I didn't like that. So I would take the speakers of the stereo system and you know, like put them parallel to each other, like facing each other, and I would put a pillow in between there, and I would lay down and listen to my music like that. It's crazy. So those were like my early day headphones. But I was just, before I was even a musician, I guess I was a musician because I was listening to everybody. I was listening to Sly Stone and Larry Graham and all the good stuff, Blue Magic. I mean, anything, Rare Earth, because my father and my godmother, they were big into music, so they had a huge library of stuff. So I was listening to everything, even their Richard Pryor, you know, my papa had a Richard Pryor collection. I was listening to that. I was sneaking and listening to that too. Yeah. But so you know, I had a nice library to pick from, and you know, my pops was in the service. He was in the Air Force, so you know, he'd come back with all the, you know, he had all the John Coltrane and Charlie Parker. He had all the Miles, all the jazz stuff, you know. So I was listening to all that. He was into that then, and I was, you know, as a kid at first, when you first hear, hey, can you, you know, when you're in the car and you playing the straight ahead, you're like, can you put on something different? Yeah. Well, now it's like my kids are like that to me. But anyway, yeah, so I was just listening, and then my parents would buy me they'd buy stuff from like Toys R Us, the little toy guitars and drum sets, and I'd beat those up. And then, but when I got serious, it was the first record with Brothers Johnson, Look Out for Number One, and that was the one that did it for me. I was like, all right, I got to play bass now. Listening to Louis Johnson and just staring at the cover and learning, you know, just learning by looking like, okay, I can see the difference between a regular bass, you know, a bass guitar and a regular guitar, you know, a 6-string guitar. So that was like my first lesson on studying on what the difference was between a guitar and a bass guitar, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I started, I wanted to play sax. I said, I wanted to play sax. I don't know why. I thought it was a sexy instrument or whatever. So
it is a sexy instrument. I play sax, David. So it is a sexy instrument. You're right. It's a sexy instrument. It is a sexy instrument. So.
That definitely is. It definitely is. But I don't know what my mind frame was as a kid, but that's what I wanted at first. And then, but by the time my parents went to the music store, they were like, you know, they were all rented out. And my parents weren't going to buy a sax, you know.
No, that was expensive, man.
Yeah. So we went to, you know, they took me to the music teacher at the school, and the music teacher was like, well, we got this here in the closet. and it was a euphonium, the baritone, and so that was really my first instrument, a baritone, and so I was reading bass clef back then. That was the same clef, and I stuck with it till almost high school. I was in the Prince George's County Orchestra, and I got superior ratings and all that. I was like,
man.
And but I was like, it just wasn't that fun. It wasn't the instrument I wanted to play. It wasn't cool, And and so I said, you know what? So when like I said, when the Brothers Johnson record came out, I was like, all right, that's it. I got to play bass. My parents got me a bass that Christmas, and in the Mel Bay study book, and from that point on, I was a student of anybody picking up the bass, in music, so it doesn't matter who it is. I can learn something from you,
Yeah. No doubt about that. And David, I want you to know that you're really dating yourself when you say the Brothers Johnson. You know that, right?
That's all right. That's good music right there, though.
David, I mean, I'm back in that day too, David. I'm born in the 60s and 70s. I grew up with the Brothers Johnson, Soul Train,
yes,
Rick James. I mean, all the people back then, Michael Jackson, Prince. Even you even go back to the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
The game, and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I was listening to all that too.
Music, wasn't it?
Yep, all that. Rare Earth, P-Funk, the early Osley Brothers, all the good stuff there.
Gap Band. Oh, my
goodness. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All that. Even radio.
Oh, man. Oh, you really?
Yeah, Barcades. I mean, Mother's Finest. Come on, man. We can keep going.
And we really could, man. We really could. Now you're not telling our age. But one of the reasons I wanted on the podcast, David, I'm also a music lover, too. My dad was a musician. He had his own band, and he was ministering music, and he taught music at the elementary school, and assistant band at the high school. So I know being a musician, you can be very busy. My mom also taught piano lessons to the local kids, and so she was an English teacher. So music was very integral in my family. We each had to play an instrument, and so I got 3 brothers, in addition to myself. And so my oldest played the trombone, the middle brother played the trumpet, I played the saxophone. My younger brother, he sang and played the piano. And so that wasn't up for optional, wasn't up for like, do you want to play an instrument? No, you're going to play an instrument. You know what I'm saying? You're going to play an instrument. You're going to play an instrument and you're going to study hard in school. So that was back in the day where there was no nonsense parenting.
Right, no doubt, no doubt.
But also, one thing about that is, coming up in the musical family, is that my dad liked many types of music, classical, jazz, gospel. And so when your bio, I understand that you also include that type of music in your plan. Absolutely.
Everything. I was listening to everything anyway, but it was a couple of things I said I wasn't into, but when I was in college, and I had a girlfriend that was a singer. She was at the Boston Conservatory, and then she was at Berkeley. And she had her roommates were all from the Boston Conservatory. So they invited me to an opera. And I was like, man, I don't want to go to no opera, So I was like, but I'll go, because they're my girlfriend at the time. So I went, and it was like 2 tunes in there that were pretty cool. I was like, wait a minute. I'm feeling this. I like, that was that, So I said, from that point on, I said, I'll never look down on any other kind of music and never, just brush it aside, because it's something good in everything. Well, I don't know with today's stuff. I ain't even gonna say anything, man. But I'm talking about any real music genre. It's something in everything to listen to. So never just never count out a whole genre.
Right. And you do many genres. I look on your bio. You do pop, R&B, rock, jazz, gospel. Is there one that you prefer over another?
Well, I grew up on funk, but I have my moments, shoot. There's times when I just want to hear straight ahead. And then there's times when I just want to hear reggae. And there's times when I want to hear go-go from DC,
DC, DC go-go. They remind me of that,
Yeah, it's times when I just want to hear old school funk. There's times when I want to hear classic rock. It's times when I want to hear hard rock. So it's times when I just want to hear Brazilian music. So I get in my moods, I think. And feeds times when I just want to be in a fusion mood. So, I just want to hear gospel. So it depends. But I'm open to everything.
Now, was you in high school band? Is that where you started? I know you said
I was in high school. I was in the string orchestra on upright bass, and I was also in the jazz band.
Oh man, the jazz band. We also have a jazz band back in the high school too. My brother was in the jazz band. He enjoyed it very much. Oh, now, cool. Did you go to when you went to college? Did you go to college and major in music? Yep,
music production and engineering. And so we just like we had projects. See, I'm about to tell on myself because you really are supposed to like produce a project, or you're supposed to be the engineer, or you're supposed to be or the arranger. And actually, on my projects, I did everything. I just assigned people. Well, I did write the song, and I didn't play bass. I had one of my students play bass on the project, and so I was just supposed to be the producer. But I ended up having to engineer it as well because the engineer was wasting our time. We only had a limited amount of time, so I had to come in and make executive call and be like, all right, you get your credit, but I got to do this, you know what I mean? But my best friend teases me about that because I got an A+ on that project.
Wow.
And he remembers he was in that he was in the same teacher's class, but not in the same class with me. And the teacher used my project as the example of the whole thing, and he still talks about it today. We've always been in competition, so like, man, just leave it alone, give it up.
But David, whenever you lose to someone or you lose something, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You never forget. You remember, and you talk to any famous athlete, the nicest, the Super Bowls,
right?
Championships, they're great, but what they remember most, the losses, right? The heart race, right? And they're compared to heart race, it's still competitive, the heart race,
Right.
I listened to Michael Johnson the other day, talking about Larry Bird, the time they lost, that's what he remembers most. So, it's being competitive that we are, and especially being men, we are very competitive. He's not going to let that down. No, he is not going to let that down.
Yeah, when you're competitive, you don't forget. You're right.
So apparently, did you have great parental support to go into music when you went to school?
Yeah. My parents always supported my music. They always got me tickets for to see that what I wanted to. I mean, I had a thick stack of tickets. I was always going to see all the shows that came in town that I went. Well, first of all, even before that point, when I was younger, they would take me to the Carter Barron in D.C. And there was like a summer series. Every summer they had everybody. I mean, I'm talking about like Chaka Khan, Billy Preston, James Brown, Blue Magic. New Birth. They had everybody. Earth, Wind & Fire. They had everybody, and they got like season tickets. So, of course, I was loving it. I was doing one every week. And so, the music was always there. And then when I got older, me and my sister, of course, my favorite two groups, in junior high school and college was like P-Funk and Earth, Wind & Fire. They was like the top groups. So anytime they came in town, I was there. The Capitol Center, RFK Stadium, Cole Fieldhouse, it didn't matter. I'm going to see the show. Mm-hmm. And I remember one show, which is why you don't see lineups like this. It was Natalie Cole opening for Brothers Johnson and then Bootsy.
Wow, you're right about that. You're right about that, man.
Yeah. Well, all my favorite. I love Natalie Cole too. So I was like, it was a great show, and of course Bootsy. So, so they always supported. Now, it was one point in when I guess 11th grade, and I said what college I wanted to go to, music college. Now, me and my pops did have a little tiff about that one. And, because they wanted me to have something to fall back on. I was like, well, there's always production. That's why I'm going to music production, music production and engineering. There's always something,
Right.
And they were like, they finally, one day in church, my pops saw me playing, and he just... said that I'm gonna let you go to that college,
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I was like, I'm going anyway. You ain't saying nothing. I'm gonna make sure whatever I gotta do, I'm going.
Yes. I'm glad you said that now, David. You didn't say that then.
Oh, heck no. Hey, you know what?
My pops. I'm glad you said that now.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No. It got heated. It got heated. It did. It did get heated. And he came back and apologized later on and all. And they've been nothing but supportive, nonstop. Through the whole thing. So I really appreciate my parents. Love them to death. They're the greatest parents.
That is fantastic. Because I had a previous guest on my podcast, Dr. Tamisha Brock, and she runs Prestigious Music Concepts. And she talks about the different careers that's in music. And I didn't know there was over 100-some careers in music for music majors. Because you see all the HBCU bands, you see the college bands with Ohio State, Michigan, Stanford. You see, the bands all halftime. And there's a lot of people that be music majors. There's a lot of jobs out there. So when a kid, especially high school kids, say, "Mom or Dad, I want to major in music in college," they look at them, because it's not the safest type of occupation to have, right? Right. You be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, the safe jobs, right? And so not all the time do they get that support when they say, "Mom and Dad, I want to major in music," because they worried about your safety and everything else. But I'm so happy to hear that your parents supported you. That is fantastic.
Well, let me tell you something else. It came full circle because when I was 12, I remember when I was around 12. I was young. And I remember where I was and who I asked. And I asked my pops, I was like, we were on the front steps of the porch. And I said, "Pop, how do you know what kind of career to go into?" And he paused for a minute. He said, "Just make sure it's something that you love."
Yes.
That was the one. Because, see, at that point, I love music. I love martial arts. And I love the weather. I love to study the weather. I'd be going to study anything that was kind of ominous. I was like, man, let me study sharks and stuff. And like, what? It could eat me in the water? What? Tornado? What? So, it's stuff like that just intrigues me. So I was thinking, my best friend helped me decide, because I remember we were in the kitchen, my parents' kitchen, and he said he had already decided he was going to Berkeley, and I was thinking about going to Penn State and majoring in like meteorology. And he was like, "Come on, man, you want to be a musician. Come on, man." And it made me think. I said, "You're right. I love music more than I do weather. So let's do it."
I'm glad you made that decision. I am so glad you made the decision. And my audience would not be remiss if they asked me. I said you was a 2-time Grammy-nominated composer. What did you compose? What 2 songs, or what did you get nominated for? What
on Tim Hagans' Animation Imagination record. It's wild. Not everybody can listen to it, but it's amongst a lot of musicians. I realized it was a cult following. I found that out. But I wrote a tune called, now I didn't title this. The original title is French Toast. But the producer Bob Belden, great producer Bob Belden, that reissued a lot of stuff for Columbia and stuff, a lot of great records, great producer. He titled it French Girl. And what he want, and that's because my original song was kind of fast, and he more medium tempo. He slowed it down to like a Miles Davis type of thing, and made it real slow, and we didn't even go to the bridge, and he called it French Girl because it sounded real sexy. And at first I was like, man, you messing my song up. And then I was like, but when we finished, I said, I like it. And we got nominated. But we got nominated in the category. Okay, the first time who beat me out? David Sanborn beat us out the second time in Inside. But the first time it was Baylor Fleck and the Flecktones. They beat us out. They beat us out for the competitions on that, and but at least we got nominated. So I was happy.
It ain't too many people get nominated. It ain't too many people in this country can say, "Hey, I've been a 2-time Grammy-nominated composer." Been nominated
on the second nomination was actually for production for the live version of Animation Live. Imagination Live, boy. I always get the name mixed up because it's like a little trick. Animation Live, but that's the same band, but it's called Hagans Belden Band.
Wow.
Live, and it actually we recorded that live in Canada, Toronto, Canada.
Oh man!
And so it's for production, for production for that. So, but I'm trying to win and get the full on joint with these guys. I got,
do it, David.
You
are you going to do it, man?
I didn't even know until a couple of years ago that I could even say that I was nominated for that. I was like, man, we were lost, so that's it.
I know. We're going about that loss, right? Everybody.
Yeah.
Losses, right? That's why your friend keep reminding you because he remember those losses. See,
right. I can't wait to take the nominations off and the nominated off and then say one. I can't wait.
It's going to happen. It is going to happen because another thing, audiences, that David came up with a thing called mute picking bass technique. David, explain to our audience and to me, because I never heard that before, mute picking technique.
All right. Well, I first started by listening to Marcus Miller, the whole, palm muting. Palm muting, where you put your palm on the bridge, near the bridge on the strings to kind of mute it, and then you pick and you play it with your use your thumb to mute, So the muting is actually on your palm, and then you play the notes with your thumb. So a lot of bass players know about that. That's palm muting. But I love the way Marcus Miller did it. So I've used it for like interludes or to break down a groove or whatever, and then I started trying to take it a little further and play lines and do it, all kind of stuff. And my thumb muscle was like, I was in pain. It was wearing me out. So I said, let me incorporate the other fingers, my index and the middle finger. Eventually I started recording, incorporating the rest of my fingers. But it turned into something different because it was more percussive. It turned into be more percussive when I started using my other fingers. And so I'm still kind of palm muting, but I'm picking with my fingers. So that's what I call it. And my best friend says, I don't like the name mute picking. I think you should call it this. I'm like, man, he thought my last album shouldn't have been called Unleashed. So I'm like, hey man, you name your stuff and name your albums. I name my stuff.
Yeah, that's true. There's always somebody want to come in and do your thing for you, right?
I want to tell you what you're supposed to do. Like, how about I'll rename you? How about that?
Oh man!
But where I knew I had something different is I had a student. He's a great bass player named Steve Jenkins, and he played with Screaming Headless Torsos, Dave Fozeski, a lot of people. Crazy technique, and we would do in a lesson, and he saw me doing it. He's like, "Oh man, wait, what are you doing?" And see, he was always on top of all the top techniques. Anything Break the Wood that anybody was doing, he had them down. I mean, he had great technique. And when he was intrigued by what I was doing, I said, I got something. Let me really develop this because this is me. You know what I mean? And I remember doing another inspirational word that was given that stuck with me is I was doing a Metro talent search. And it was like a bass compilation thing. And I didn't know how to grab the crowd or nothing. I'm just trying to do something technical and think I'm wowing somebody, So, of course, when I pulled out the funk stuff, everybody was like, yeah. But anything else, they were like, whatever. It just goes over their head. So I'm waiting back. And I was a Stanley Clark fanatic at the time.
Oh, so I love Stanley Clark. Me too. Yeah. I love Stanley. I'm a Stanley fan.
Yeah, me too. And I wanted to be Stanley at one point. I'm like, so I had one of my classmates. I love Stanley so much. One of my classmates in high school knew I did, and they had a shirt made for me saying Stanley Clark. I thought that was so sweet of her.
You got good friends.
Yeah, and so
I have good friends too. Okay, just get what you're watching, David. My friends, you're okay, all right. Don't come on here and say, Mitchell. David said he had good friends, but you didn't mention us. Hey, I had good friends too. Okay. I don't know my friend about the podcast. Well, Mitchell, you didn't say nothing about us being good friends. I had the greatest friends in the world. Y'all just need to give me a Santa Claus t-shirt. So next time, give me a Santa Claus t-shirt, and we be better friends.
That's funny, man. But so this guy, he came backstage while I was waiting to hear whether I won or not, and he said, and he was an older guy, so and I'm a young teenager, so I'm thinking he's gonna say I was doing something, He said, "Yeah, you're the bass player. You sounded good, man, but you could play, but you sound just like Stanley Clarke. You need to find your own voice. You need to find a sound of your own, your own style." And it kind of hurt my feelings, but it's the best thing I could have heard. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And from that point on, I was trying to So even throughout playing with all these groups, I was still searching for something that's me, because that whole trying to be of course, when I was younger, I wanted to be the greatest bass player in the world. Of course. Know what? That's never attainable, never. Because there's always going to be somebody greater than you, or somebody will always perceive somebody greater than you. So that's not even, that's great as far as being great and trying to be great yourself. But the best thing is being the best you that you can be. That's what it's all about. So when you find yourself and your own sound, and you could be, being the best you could be, you're in competition with nobody. There's no competition. Yeah. You're just you're just trying to be great. You're just trying to up yourself. You're not in competition with anybody else. So that when I started developing that technique, and so then I had a gig after I was with my student, and it was no drummer.
Oh man.
So it was just me, a keyboardist, and a guitarist. And it was his gig, Jerry Gordon. He was like a jazz kind of Latin guitarist. And so I use that technique because I could do like chords and, I keep the rhythm and play the bass and do chords and stuff. And he said solo. And I was like, I never tried to solo with this technique. So that threw me off. But I was game, and I tried, and it went off real well. I said, oh man. So it started opening, the door started opening wider for this technique. I was like, oh wow. So I was using it for jazz, Latin. Then I used it for everything. It was only maybe 2 places where I tried to use it and they didn't like it. And that was with the great Phil Upchurch. Guitar player, played with Lalah Hathaway and everything. I did an album with him and his son, great musician, period. Sean Rickman, plays everything. And he's like, no, I want the notes to ring louder. Because he wanted, and that's the same thing with one of the reggae cats that I was playing with. He wanted the notes to ring louder. That's the only thing, longer. And so if you're muting, then they're not going to, if you're kind of doing a muting technique, it doesn't. But otherwise, shoot, I use it. I used it on Philip Bailey's record, just Soul on Jazz. And the funny thing, when he came in the studio, he wasn't there when we were arranging. His musical director was there, and I helped. I didn't take any credit for it, but I helped arrange one of the tunes and I set up the bass line. So when Phil came in, Philip Bailey, he's like, yeah, I love that. Who came up with that? And the funny thing is, the musical director paused, and then he kind of looked over at me and just kind of pointed. He didn't want to give me my credit. Yeah. It was funny, man. It was funny, but it was an honor. So I knew I wanted to start getting the style on record, because somebody else gonna start doing it and be like, hey, I did it first. I did it, So I know, and that could probably happen anyway. But I'm just gonna. Like I said, I'm in competition with nobody. All I can do is, the other people were the ones that told me that they've never seen it before. I see it every time. I've never heard anybody say, oh, I do that. Or I heard somebody do that. Now, there's one bass player named Alex Al when I was coming up, and one of my boys, Tim Carmen's killer keyboardist, played with Eric Clapton and everybody. He said, man, there's a bass player on the West Coast that sounds like he could be your brother, And I was like, who is this cat you talking about? And this is way back when I'm here. He said, y'all got a similar technique. Y'all sound like, and I found out it was Alex Al. And I hear what they're saying. Mine is still different. It's not. It's a little more. I love what Al's doing, and I love his playing. He's a killer player. And I can hear what they're saying why we sound different. And then we eventually met and we did bass clinics together and everything. But it's still different. It's still different.
Well, that is fantastic, man. David, hey, man, I hate in this podcast, man. You've been a wealth of musical knowledge, man. I mean, I'm going to have to have you back. There's no doubt about it, man. I didn't go through half the stuff when you do this podcast, man. But dude,
thanks, man.
Yeah,
I mean, take up all your time, man.
I am so happy. I learned so much, man, and I know I'm gonna learn even more from you. I'm a big jazz fan, R&B. Like I said before, I grew up in a musical family, man. When you listen to everything from classical jazz, it's like you did gospel, right? It's an array of music. So I'm just so happy. Before you leave, can you give any suggestions or advice to our young people who might want to get into music?
Yeah, just keep, definitely this music business can be, even at all levels, can be kind of disheartening at certain points. And that's why I know that's why my parents didn't want me in it, because, a lot of musicians, they have hardships and this and that. But even like through the pandemic, I kept my focus on what I wanted to do, on my goals. And that's how you keep being depressed and everything else, like during a pandemic. Just keep focused, keep working on being better, and don't focus on what's going on, because eventually all that's going to pass, and you've gotten better, but other people that have been sitting around sulking didn't get better, or didn't create something new. So the thing is just it's great to listen to all the different musicians, no matter what your instrument is. Listening and learning, different songs and solos and stuff. That is, to me, like 85%, almost 90% of being a musician, because all that's your library. All that you listen to, the more you listen to, and all different genres and stuff and different styles, that's your library. Because even today, sometimes I'll play something, like I had a video recording yesterday with Larry Braggs, and stuff will pop up, and you'll be like, "Dang, where'd I get that from?" It'll be a lick that you grew up listening to way back and learned from a record. That stuff comes out. It really does. I realize that. So it's crazy. So, a lot of times I can't even remember where it's coming from. But
it's been embedded in you. I mean, you retain that memory sometimes. Things come out of nowhere. So, that is great advice, man. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on. And if someone want to get in contact with you on social media, how can they reach you? Whether to do more bass lessons or just learn about music in general, just know about the industry.
I'm on Facebook, David Dyson and David Dyson extended page. I don't know why I had the extra page, because more people came and got maxed out. Also on Instagram, David Dyson Bass. Mm-hmm. I'm also on Low Hand Funk on there, and the same thing happened. I started off as Low Hand Funk. And you can find me on LinkedIn, David Dyson.
All right, well, David, we're going to have all the information on our website, and any venue, social media venue that we have, that we put this podcast on, we're going to have your information down there, man. But thank you so much for coming on our show today, man. I really appreciate it. And
my honor, man.
For your wealth of musical knowledge there. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm honored, man.
And I'd like to thank our viewers and listeners for joining me, Mitchell Rivers, on the Career Education Learning Center podcast, where we make your career dreams a reality. God bless.